So, as a Japanese spiritual practice, the system of Reiki was built on a firm and deep foundation of esoteric Japanese Buddhism and the indigenous Shinto practices of Japan. And when we step into learning the system of Reiki with our attention focused on those origins, we will find that there are quite a few of these principles and perspectives and concepts that come out of these esoteric traditions with long and deep roots in Japan that can feel a little confusing, a little distant, a little bit hard to access and to understand. And it can be really challenging to see how some of these concepts could be directly applicable in our daily lives in the here and now. But as I always say, if our spiritual practice is not accessible to us where the rubber hits the road in the challenges and joys of our day to day, then it is of limited usefulness to us. And so that's a big reason why this channel exists, to not just teach from those origins, to help contextualize the system of Reiki in as much as we can its original context, but importantly, to really see how those contexts actually are quite relevant, quite meaningful, and quite valuable to us here in our day-to-day life, to try to help build a bridge between confusing esoteric concepts and their value to us in our daily life. In doing so, we not only end up with a more valuable system of practice for our day-to-day, but we also can walk in more integrity with the way that we engage that practice. And over the last couple of weeks, I've had some fairly poignant examples of just that in my daily life, of a particular principle from those origins that I was struggling with around a certain situation, and the ways in which my Reiki practice really helped to soften that and to really make it easier to walk through this difficult situation. And so now, with a little bit of distance from that experience, I wanted to share that example with you here now in the hopes that it is helpful to you on your journey. So friends, welcome back to Heartscapes, where we are exploring the system of Reiki to live lives that are rooted, spacious, connected, and that help us to remember ourselves. My name is Michaela. Welcome back to the studio. So I've taken a little bit of a YouTube break the last couple of weeks. Haven't put up a video for at least 2 weeks. Working on a couple of pretty intensive projects here around the old urban homestead, and so just really had to take a bit of a break. And in those couple of weeks, since the last time I was with you, I've actually had 2 people in my life pass away. And both of those people were people who were mentors to me, who filled a role in my life of kind of guidance and stewardship and teaching and mentoring in 2 very different areas of my life, but both of them deeply influential, and both of them really being instrumental in some pretty significant, major life developments in the course of my life, including my choice to step into this work, to step away from working in higher ed and to devote myself to working with the system of Reiki. And so it's a poignant time, right, to confront the loss of a mentor, to confront the loss of people who have significantly impacted our lives. And certainly, my practice with the system of Reiki helps to make space for that grieving, that integrating process. But that process was made even more complex and challenging by the fact that one of those folks, one of those mentors, while being, again, deeply influential and important, significant in my life, was also a person who made choices and took actions that caused some harm, that really impacted people around me and the community that we shared, and to a lesser degree impacted me as well in ways that were negative and potentially harmful. In other words, this was a complex person, right? A person who did great good in the world, who positively benefited many, many, many people as the head of an organization, whose work was powerful and important and inspiring to many of us, and again, altered the direction of my life around my career choices and really around my personal spiritual practice. around my ability to even feel my own sense of power, my own sense of agency in my life, my ability to make decisions on a large scale. So, really significant positive impacts on my life. And some significant negative impacts on my life, and again, on the lives of others. And unfortunately, the process of coming to terms with that negative impact is something that I really started to wrestle with really only a couple of years ago. This person being in my life for the last 10 years or so. So just in the last couple of years, really have been engaging in the process of kind of coming to understand those negative impacts, kind of unpacking them a bit, looking at the places where I was ignoring these problems for quite some time because of the benefit that was happening for me. And as a result of that, I'd really distanced myself from this person and kind of from the work, which was painful and difficult and something that I was working through. And, had made a lot of progress in reconciling all of that inside of myself. Um, However, it was an incomplete process. I had not gotten to the point where I felt kind of reconciled or fully, integrated or ready to kind of reapproach some of the positive aspects of that relationship. And in the midst of that process, this person passed away quite suddenly. And, there's moments where we feel like we have plenty of time to work through something, to integrate something into our life, to maybe make decisions about something. And, that we might have plenty of time to circle back to those people and, you know, make whatever amends or have whatever conversation that we feel wants to have. And I was definitely in that place, a place of intending to circle back to this person at some time in the future when the time felt right, when I felt ready, and to, say some things that I needed to say and hopefully have some good relational outcomes. And then that time was cut very short suddenly. And the fact is, we never know how much time we're going to have, right? It's always an unfair assumption to make that we're going to have plenty of time, especially when it comes to, connecting with people, because we just don't know how much time we each have. And so there's this sense of um, this sense of unfinished business for me, and this sense of, this time that opens up, when a person dies, and the appropriate response being to gather, to want to honor that person, right? Again, a person who's been greatly influential for a lot of people, right? A desire to, name the blessings of that person and to, be together and to grieve and to, honor, right, the passing of this person. That's a very appropriate and normal response. And what I was finding inside of myself was that I was resisting wanting to engage in that process. And when I investigated that a little bit, I realized that the resistance was really coming from an inability to hold inside of myself the full humanity of this person. Because this person's full humanity included great benefit and great harm. And I was feeling inside of myself this tension because I felt like it had to be one or the other. That either I needed to celebrate this person's goodness, right? Celebrate their life and their goodness, or I needed to almost, like, the feeling was almost like boycott that celebration and kind of, hang on to an acknowledgement of that harm. And a feeling of like, if we celebrate, then the harm is going to be ignored and it's not going to be dealt with. And I had to just get really honest with myself that I was having that feeling, that sense of polarity inside of myself, a sense of duality. And so it's here that we really can see the way in which a state of dualistic thinking can be in the way of us being our full self and being fully participating in life. Non-duality is a central concept within Buddhism and is very alive in the esoteric Buddhist traditions in Japan. And there's quite a bit of teaching and practice and sutras and mantras around reconciling duality inside of ourselves and living in a way that is non-dualistic. Within the system of Reiki, we see those threads woven into the precepts. We see them woven into the practices in some very specific ways, some of which I've talked about in other videos. But we can see when we really dig into what do these practices mean? What do these mantras mean? What do the words within the precepts, the specific words in Japanese that were chosen to describe the foundations of the system of Reiki? If we dig into what they meant in context, in their original context, much of it is guiding our attention towards cultivating non-duality in our life. Duality, that sense of polarization, that things are either one way or the other and they can't be both. Things are either good or bad. They're either like me or not like me, right? I should either reject them or completely embrace them. That this sense of the world being a dualistic place is a concept and a mental framework that many Buddhist practices guide us away from and help to teach us to soften around, to literally make more space inside of us for two things that seem to be opposite of each other to be true at the same time and to live inside of us at the same time. And again, this can feel like a very esoteric and confusing concept. But if we look at this particular example, right, we can see it very, very clearly alive, right? A relationship with a particular person that had positive impacts and negative impacts, that had complexity, that had depth, right? That revealed a complex human, right? With great, capacities and great mistakes in their track record, right? And I could see inside of myself the impulse to make this person either one way or the other, to name their legacy, right? To name the legacy of this person in the world as either good or bad. Even saying it out loud seems ridiculous. Who among us is either 100% good or 100% bad, right? That's just not reality. We know that from our own experiences of ourselves and of other people in our lives. And when we reduce ourselves and others to being only one way, we first of all reject their humanity. We're not allowing them or ourselves to be a full and complete person. And we can, there's all kinds of things that can lead us to. So in this case, it could lead me to rejecting the really valuable things that I learned and experienced from this person, from this relationship. In fact, I did. For a time, I moved away from teaching certain things that I had learned, right? Even though my role as a teacher really came out of that relationship. I felt like I had to reject, everything that I learned and turn away from all of that, which was really impossible because my identity as a teacher, again, grew out of that relationship and that experience. And so rejecting this person's full humanity really wasn't even realistic because I was already enacting really valuable things that I had learned. I felt like I either needed to do that or I needed to ignore the harm that was done and see this person as, a hero, as infallible, right? And how often do we do that to the people that we idolize or that we see as mentors or, who influence us, right? The leaders that we follow. It's so easy to see them as perfect or some sort of better type of human, to put them on a pedestal, And then what happens when something is revealed about their character or their life or their decisions that doesn't feel so good? That's a little bit ugly, maybe a little bit violent, maybe a little bit cruel or unkind or selfish. It's like they fall and crash and burn off of that pedestal. And that impulse to throw away and reject everything that they have put in the world that has benefited us becomes an impulse. It can become quite strong. Now, I want to say there are absolutely times when it is appropriate to turn away from somebody's teachings or their art or their music because of things that are revealed about their character or their choices. Like, there are absolutely times when that is the right thing to do for us. Each of us has to decide that for ourselves, though, right? We have to find, where is the line for me where I'm not going to engage with that person, with what they produce, what they put out into the world anymore, because I'm not, like, I need to turn away from all of it. That is okay. That is an okay choice to make. Absolutely. There are a few examples of that for me. But there are other examples where I do hold both the goodness and the benefit that I've received from somebody's life, from their work in the world. And I hold that alongside places where I am in disagreement with them, places where they have caused harm, where they are, acting out values that I do not share. And I can hold those two things together and say, I'm going to speak out against these things, but I'm not going to throw away all of these. I'm going to hold on to the things that truly have impacted my life in a beneficial way. And I'm going to see the full humanity of this person, not put them on a pedestal, not see them as infallible, but also not see them as wholly bad either, or wholly good. It's such a normal tension to feel, right? I'm sure, I would imagine many of you listening to this can think of your own examples in your life where there's either somebody that you knew personally, like this mentor I'm speaking of, or people out in the world, celebrities, artists, leaders, writers, musicians who, we've had this experience with, where we learn something about them that makes it feel like we have to choose. We have to view them as either good or bad. And when I bring it back to the personal example of my relationship with this mentor, what I really had to work with and be in my Reiki practice with is that I did not want to reject everything that I had received from her, and that it wasn't right to do that. It wasn't right to ignore all of the good that she has done for many, many people, all of the inspiration she has brought to so many people. It wasn't right to reject those things, either externally, in what I say, or internally in how I feel about the relationship. And at the same time, it's not right to ignore that there was harm caused as well. And that, lo and behold, it's actually possible to make enough room inside for both of those things to be true at the same time. To have a non-dualistic relationship with my memory of this person who has passed, and in my conversations with other people about this person. Right? For the longest time, I felt like I had to keep it secret, the bad things. These are unspoken things. We don't talk about those things, right? We only talk about the good things. On the other side, we're not going to talk about the good things. We're only going to talk about the bad things. There's a freedom in realizing that I don't have to make that choice. In fact, it's not right for me to do that. That's, again, not right for me, not as a value judgment for anybody else. But for me, it's not right to view this person in this dualistic way. And it doesn't feel good, right? There was great sorrow. There was great grief in feeling like I had to reject a positive memory of this person. And there was great frustration in thinking that I could not speak ill of the dead, right? Because that's a thing that can feel hard, that can feel yucky, right? To speak ill of somebody who has passed. But rather, we can and we can, as far as the capacity we have inside of ourselves and in our relationships with each other, we can talk about this person's fullness, their full humanity, and look at that fullness and appreciate all of it. And the system of Reiki, with the practices that we learn, the specific breathing techniques, the specific visualizations of the mind, specific postures of the body, specific contemplations of mantras and precepts and sutras. Through these practices, I have gained, and I have seen so many other people gain, a visceral, like physical, physiological, as well as mental and emotional sense of there being enough space, that there's literally more space made inside, that we grow bigger to hold more complexity and more humanity and more life, that we can hold more life inside of ourselves through the practices in the system of Reiki. And I'm so grateful that I have those practices as I'm walking through this experience, because I could feel it. I could feel the change inside of myself when I applied these practices to this experience, and the feeling that I was having, that I had to choose, that I had to make this person one thing or another, that they weren't allowed to be both, and a whole lot more, right? Because it's not just these two aspects of a person either. It's all of who they are. And there's great relief in that feeling. It felt really good to make that space, to realize that I don't have to censor what I say. I just have to be compassionate to myself and to others in how I express it. So just wanted to share that with you all. I wanted to come back into this space. I've missed being with you on videos. This is a very poignant example, but I hope one that is clear on how we can take a concept from these foundational roots of the system of Reiki, a concept like non-duality, and bring it back from the purely esoteric, confusing, maybe untouchable realm of esoteric Buddhism, and pull it into our daily life in a way that actually really matters, that really does impact our day-to-day, how we experience the world, how we experience ourselves and each other. It matters that we grow in our capacity to do that. So friends, thank you so much for listening, for being along on this story with me. And as you move through your day, through your relationships, through the decisions that you make about how you relate to the complex humans in your life, may you be deeply provisioned for that journey. Thanks so much for being with me. Until next time, I love you. Goodbye.